Very welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everyone. Delighted to begin this next webinar after the highlights yesterday of the World of Corporate Venturing Review and Report of last year in the Outlook. I'm delighted to turn our attention today to the Rising Stars and Emerging Leaders Awards 2022. This is one of the highlights of our year. And first up, I obviously have to thank my colleague, Edison Vu, who has prepared these reports, these profiles, prepared the supplement, which is now out. Every one of you who are winners on this call would have received your little social media graphic. Do post that, do get the word out, do celebrate your amazing achievements and accomplishments. But obviously I want to say thank you to Edison and our colleague Poonam, who did the sort of design and sort of graphics for that. So thank you both to them in particular, but obviously to the wider team that's helped deliver this. Obviously Petra, thanks in the background for making sure today's webinar goes so well. So quick sort of review of what we'll do today. We've got a couple of action items that we'll talk through. We'll start off, and obviously this is a webinar rather than a dinner hosted at the Monterey Aquarium before the GCVI summit. Obviously with the Omicron variant, we took safety, your all safeties, as our first priority, and we pushed back that awards dinner until mid-June. So we'll actually we've postponed the GCVI summit to around the 20th to 22nd of June. And just beforehand, there'll be an invite-only dinner at the Monterey Aquarium for all of the stars and award winners on today's session and otherwise. And it'll be a great sort of accomplishment. So today it will be very much just a sort of recognition of you all. Obviously, we've prepared a report, we're sent it out on social media, we're recognizing you all, and then to kind of almost bring some of these stories to life, delighted to have a number of people who will share some of their own personal journeys and some of their own personal insights about the industry and what they think about current conditions. And so delighted to have Dave Clowes and Sophia Nadur from BP Ventures, Andrea Course from Shell Ventures, Anil Achuta from TDK Ventures, and Tiffany Wang from MS&AD, their corporate venturing unit as well. So thank you to you all. We'll hear from you shortly, and I will just run through in the next few minutes just a little bit of the awards. So I kind of almost feel like if we were live, we would get a drum roll, people would clink their glasses, but we can't quite do that on a webinar. So I will jump straight to chase. Obviously, as you can see here, it's one of the things we're always delighted when we do these Rising Stars awards is to see these are the people with broadly less than 5 years experience within the industry. But what we find when we ask the bosses of the 6,000 or so 6,000 or so corporate venturing units that we track and corporations that have done investments, when we ask them who they would recommend and nominate, or who they would nominate from other teams and other units maybe they've seen across on deals, we're always delighted to see in one way how mixed and sort of impressive the nominations are. It's always very difficult to choose the top 50, to look through their accomplishments and analyze and talk to some of the portfolio companies and get those testimonials. But ultimately, those recommendations, particularly from your bosses, really make a difference. But compared to the overall venture industry, what we do find when we look at the 25,000 plus people who work and invest in corporate venturing and doing deals, and also those in the back office who support to make sure that the units function, as well as those that help do the business development, it's a very mixed group. Most of them are obviously hugely well qualified in terms of business schools or postgraduates. Often they have an entrepreneurial background as well, or they're being high flyers within the corporate parent, and they're learning the experience to bring some of that innovation back inside the unit. So when you look across, it really is a very diverse set, both by backgrounds as well as on other factors as well. And so congratulations to you all. I'll just run through over the next minute or so, give people a chance just to look at names. I won't read everyone out because I'm afraid my voice will give way, even if I was capable of talking so much, because I want to get on to the exciting things. But obviously, thank you to you all for your successes. We're delighted to have so many of you on this session and on this call. And then in particular, we're delighted to have so many from different regions and with different perspectives on the sectors that they do. It really is indicative of how important corporate venturing is as a community. And when we say that, we obviously ran through the sort of world of corporate venturing yesterday. I won't repeat too much on that, but ultimately it was a record year on almost all factors last year. There was nearly $300 billion of venture deals that corporate venturers were involved in. There was nearly 200 billion of exits that corporate venture-backed deals sold or had IPOs profitably. And that's just the disclosed valuations. Obviously, that's just a fraction, or in some ways, the tip of the iceberg of what corporations do. If you take a group like Johnson & Johnson, they did 56 deals last year, but probably nearly half of them weren't actually properly publicized. So that's hundreds of millions of dollars put out, that wasn't necessarily fully disclosed, not just from J&J, but others. And you add that up, and it really indicates that the power of corporate venturing to make the world a better place and to scale up the venture ecosystem has been fundamental. And it's you all who are making that happen. So thank you to all the rising stars. All these profiles are available to read online at globalventuring.com. And as you can see, there's a very nice little sort of cover image chosen by Dan and Poonam and Edison. So thanks very much. It's very much going to the stars in some ways. You can see what we did there. And now on to the emerging leaders. This is again top 50. You'll be unsurprised to see what we're going to do next, which will be run through lots of names. And again, rather than me sort of picking out any individuals or trying to run through 50 names in short order, I'll just give people a few moments to see some of their friends and colleagues and peers that they've worked with, maybe on deals. Obviously, we're always welcome. We love the feedback that you all give. We love seeing sort of, in effect, social media blow up when everyone starts posting this out on LinkedIn or Twitter or any of the other platforms you like to do. I'm not sure quite yet whether we're able to get Bitcoin or Ether in return for doing these awards, but there's probably some way. If you did an NFT against your sort of image, the digital image, you might even be able to make some money off it. So maybe that's an idea for next year, Edison. We could do an NFT against all of the digital artwork against people's names. I don't know, maybe people would like that. So feedback welcome to us. And obviously, Marion, well done to Marion. J&J, I just referenced how impressive and successful they are. So, and then we'll just move on. Final page should be coming up. Good. And then here's them all again, looking very happy and glamorous. So thank you to you all for all your wonderful achievements. Obviously, the emerging leaders tend to be people with probably more than 5 years track record. They're the people, the sort of glue in the unit that in effect aren't the sort of the overall heads of units in many cases, but are probably the next generation of leaders coming through within those teams. So it's really impressive to watch the levels of experience and also the hugely impressive accomplishments that you all have. So thanks once again on that side. So now, again, similarly, a nice picture of an emerging leader, a little mountain there, which is a very nice touch. I thought that was a nice mountain. All emerging leader profiles are, of course, available to read online at globalventuring.com. And obviously, it's not just that you can find. We do a huge amount of daily news, thanks to my colleagues Rob Levine and Fernando Mercado there. And we also do all the sort of the podcasts and webinars and everything else you can imagine, reports. The monthly magazine, GCV magazine, will be out later, well, next week. And so we'll turn to some interviews and just to get some feedback from some of the staff. So thanks once again to Dave and Sophia. I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and then we'll come back on to the next people in that way. So Dave, Sophia, thank you for being able to join us. How are you both?
Good. How are you, Jim?
Good. Dave?
Fine, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I'm delighted to have you both here. It's a sort of BP Ventures has obviously been one of the sort of heavyweights of the corporate venturing community, and they've always, I think, spent a lot of time thinking about the training and development of its talent and it's been very noticeable how over the past 10 or so years, at least, how central BP Ventures and obviously Launchpad and the sort of the incubator side has really become to BP. It feels almost some ways that, you know, you are the central unit and BP has reshaped its culture and its organization around you to think about the future, which is an impressive accomplishment, I will say. And obviously, Sophia, David, perhaps you could just give a little bit of background about yourselves, just for those who haven't yet had the opportunity to read your profiles. David, perhaps we'll start with Sophia. If you want to just give a couple of moments about your background, and then we'll actually ask you what you've been most proud of. When you're looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self, if possible?
Hi, so I'm Sophia, managing partner at BP Ventures. I'm focused on new markets, so a lot of our emerging markets for BP Ventures, really working on looking at new deal flow there. I've got a long history in the CPG, FMCG industry, worked in innovation and marketing. I also am an entrepreneur, run my own business, sold my startup. So, and I've worked in M&A, worked in a number of deals on both sides, so-called on the business side and also on the venturing side. I'm also a corporate lawyer as a midlife crisis. So I've had a bit of a background. I guess the question is, what advice would I give to my younger self? I would say three things. One is trust your instincts. Sometimes you can overthink things, and actually sometimes just feeling what you think is the right thing to do often is. And that's kind of linked to the second point, which is I've always taken a leap of faith in myself. So I've changed industries, changed geographies. I've moved countries, companies at a fairly good clip. And part of that is to take a leap in yourself and help yourself to grow, because you've got one life to live. And the last point is around, it's good to plan ahead. And I've always been a good planner. But actually what I've learned over the years too is that actually being flexible and adaptable is what's in the end, what's going to keep you in good stead. And as we see with the corporate venture capital industry over the last few years, some of these younger self storytelling and promises have held in good stead.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sophia. It's really impressive. Very inspiring background, very inspiring work you're doing to make the world a better place as well. Thank you. Dave, what about yourself? Can you give us, again, a sort of snapshot of your wonderful sort of bio, as it were, and what do you think?
So I've been with BP for 15 years now. I spent the early part of my career in our biofuels group, setting up and growing our lignocellulosic biofuels team here in the US. And then when that didn't pan out, we shut the whole thing back down. And through a couple of good suggestions and a good mentor, I landed in the ventures team, where I've been for now 6 years. So kind of what I would, the advice I would give my younger self is more along the lines of learning how to effectively communicate. Is one of the things, I focus so heavily on kind of that traditional MBA skill set, which is important, right? You need to have that finance and that accounting and that math, your kind of strategy skill set. But to me, corporate venturing is all about kind of telling a story, right? Using your influencing skills to kind of overcome the status quo of what's here and helping people see what's possible in the future. People who are just solely focused on operating a business today that's profitable, and they don't see the reason to change a lot of that. So taking and helping them visualize these unknown technologies and putting them into today's businesses. So it's about learning how to write in a clear and concise manner. I used to start writing, I still write too long of essays, as several of my colleagues will say, but I always had the TLDR section at the top, where if you only have 2 minutes, you could read my 4 bullets, and then you can get into my essay below. So that's one thing, but public speaking is the other one. One of the things that I regret most is that I didn't take Toastmasters early enough. Grace Chan, who's our rising star, really pushed me into that program, and I can't thank her enough for it. It's changed who I am and what I do. Being able to communicate to your organization your thoughts and what you want them to accomplish, more so than just on a one-on-one basis, is one of the biggest things that you can do to help yourselves out. And then using technology to kind of effectively communicate in your organization beyond just what you can reach in a zone, and using technology to build your personal brand through through Twitter, through LinkedIn. Those things are all things I wish I would have known 15 years ago.
That's really powerful. Thanks, Dave. And interested in slightly different backgrounds, but you both end up at BP Ventures. So I think it's really indicative in some ways of just how sort of diverse the approach to building a team was. I think it's very powerful on that. So maybe we'll stay with you on that side. And so I suppose, what are you most proud of in the past year? You've thought about the past 15 years, but what's the sort of pandemic era brought to you? Is there anything you felt you could have done better as well? What's the learning?
To me, I mean, what my biggest accomplishment last year was taking one of our portfolio companies through a SPAC transaction to be a public company. Very high stakes transaction, super exciting, and successful, right? So those are always, top on the list. It really kind of gave our team one of our biggest wins and provided us some some further executive support for the team. And it changed my career. It really provided me an opportunity to shine and kind of prove who I am. And it helped me find my voice in this organization, not only within ventures, but within BP on that level. What could have gone better? Being able to see more people, right? Like that's kind of the one thing we constantly struggled with. We would get back into the office and then we'd have to go back home again. And, we weren't able to go to different events. So like that networking just didn't quite happen. So we want to get back to real life, and we can get back to seeing each other and meeting new people, other than Zoom calls here and there. So those are kind of my takeaways from the last year.
Thanks, David. And Sophia?
For me, I think my highlight was the Blue Smart venture we did in India. It was BP Ventures' first investment in India, and as well, it was into quite a disruptive space that we decided to venture in. Kind of went against the grain. Everybody were venturing in micromobility, and we decided to take a punt in a different market sector, and it's really paid off. And I think the other thing, which I'm really happy about, is that given I'm pretty well entrenched in the business side. I spent a few years before building the e-mobility strategy for BP globally. And so that helped as well to unlock a lot of strategic value, which we're already seeing from that investment. So I'm pretty proud. I think one of the things I wish I did more last year, but I intend to do. I mean, we all lived a virtual world mostly, but I intend to try and collaborate a lot more, connect a lot more with people who are working in the same industry vertical as I am, particularly in emerging markets, because it's going to be quite difficult for us to get through the energy transition and to place those bets on those emerging companies and technologies unless we collaborate more.
That's really good. Sophia, I suppose if you think, that collaboration piece, but as you think about the sort of CVC industry as a whole, is there an area of change that you would like to see, more generally?
Well, it's linked to that last point, which is I think we need to start thinking in terms of let's say technology bets and strategic areas that we need to place bets in. I think we need to think a little bit more along an ecosystem point of view. I think for me, we're still quite siloed in the approach we take, and I understand why, because we all after the same acorns, which could potentially become billion-dollar businesses. But we need to play the long game. And I think by collaborating more across the entire industry and across the ecosystem, especially in markets where capital is harder to get in the normal market, I think that will help us as well in the future. I think a little bit more collaboration across the ecosystem would be brilliant. And I think for me, events and activities like GCV is a huge, let's say, boon and a way to get us to come together and force us at a table.
Yeah, that's powerful. We're better when we invest together, almost. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. David?
To me, it's finding a solution to a problem that we face in BP, which is deploying the technology into our businesses, right? And I don't know that it's everybody's problem, but I'm sure if we have it, then other people do too. And it's about, we invest to secure access to technology and get that technology into our assets and our business somewhere. We're not always the best at it, so we're looking for ways to improve that. And so my request to the audience and who's here is, if you've had success doing that, please reach out. We would love to kind of get better ourselves. And if you're struggling with that, reach out and we'd love to brainstorm and kind of come up with ways to, again, collaborate and be part of the solution. Because again, I don't think it's just a problem that BP has all of it on its own.
That's wonderful. Thanks very much for that, David. Totally agree. And thanks, Sophia. Powerful insights from you both there. So now we'll turn to Andrea, actually. Andrea, top 50 rise, emerging leader and from Shell Ventures. So Andrea, welcome. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you, Jim. Always good to be part of GCV.
I know, it's just a shame we can't be meeting up in California at this precise moment, but still a Zoom call with you is all better than anything else I can think of. So thank you very much. Can you perhaps do the same thing? Perhaps share a little bit of your history, your sort of view, and then I suppose looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Sure. So let me start by giving a little bit of history about myself and who I am. So I like to say I'm a rocket scientist turned venture capitalist. I focus on new technology development, and I specialize in investments in the areas of robotics, machine learning, AI, and decarbonization. And in addition to that, I like to think of myself as a huge supporter of minority-owned startups. Hopefully, I can make a change in that space as well. What I would tell my younger self, so I think it's in line to what Sophia just mentioned. I think life always throws things at you, where you're not prepared. It's good to plan, but it's always good to be flexible. And I think that, the advice I would give myself, it's number one, always be ready to pivot, right? Work with what you have, see what you can do with that. And then number two, never give up. Sometimes things look like they're not what you wanted. They're not what you had planned for yourself. I know I've been in situations where I didn't get the job I wanted or the promotion I wanted, and then I ended up getting something better. So I think I would just tell my younger self, don't worry, things will work out. Everything happens for a reason, and things always tend to work out in the end.
Powerful. That sort of experience almost teaches the wisdom side of things. That's really important. So thank you, Andrea. And then I suppose past year, what are you most proud of, or any learnings, any takeaways?
Yes. So we always get the question of like, what's the one investment that you're most proud of? I always think that's like asking you, which one of your kids do you love the most? The younger one. No, I think, in all seriousness, I think what I'm really most proud of is the way that our industry and specifically, Shell Ventures has approached the pandemic, right? So it's no secret for anyone that 2020 was hard, and we all thought 2021 was going to be better, but it was just as hard as 2020, right? I think it's pretty impressive to see how, with all the uncertainty, we managed to not only survive, but thrive. And we continue to make deals, and we continue to invest. I would say personally, between March of 2020 to June of 2020, we went into emergency response mode. We were just trying to figure out how do we help our portfolio companies through this uncertainty period. And really focus on, okay, how do we help our portfolio, and what are we going to do going forward, right? But back in June, it was like, okay, nothing has happened. We figure out how to work remotely. We figure out how to do deals without even meeting the CEOs in some cases, just how we've managed to really transform the way that we do things. I would say I really missed doing face-to-face stuff, and it's kind of weird. Investing in a company where you haven't met all the players. But I'm really impressed and proud of how we continued as an industry to support the causes.
I think that's a great point. That's really good. And so as you think ahead then, what area of change would you like to see?
So I think I'll go back to an area that's one of my, so I think I'm really passionate about three things. I'm really passionate about climate change, really passionate about gender diversity, and really passionate about just inclusion, right? And I think definitely the VC industry can do a lot more when it comes to, I guess, all those three things, which is why I feel like I'm in the right place. I want to feel like what I do has a purpose. I also would love to see the numbers go up. as most of you know, the money that goes to female founders is only 2% of the total budget, which is still astonishing to me. There are study after study that show that companies that have a female founder or a female management person, if they have a 50-50 management team, they have better results financially. So it's not only the right thing to do for, you know, for diversity, but it's also the right thing to do for business. They perform better. So it's how do we raise the issue and how do we just ensure that we get rid of all these biases that we have, and you know, how do we give more autonomy to women to make the investments, because I think that's also part of the problem, right? So if I could change one thing, I would definitely increase the diversity in the decision makers, but also I think by doing that, we could increase the diversity in the companies that we fund and the management teams that we fund.
Certainly one of the great feedback points we get through the GCV Leadership Society. Through, you know, we have the sort of DEI, or Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, sort of committee that helps us think about these things. It's definitely a powerful point you make there, and certainly the data certainly stacks up on that side. So thank you once again, Andrew. We really appreciate you joining.
Thank
Congratulations again on your award. That's really wonderful.
Thank you. Cool.
Now we'll turn to Anil. Anil, thanks very much for being able to join us. Obviously, TDK Ventures and you in particular had a astonishing past couple of years, you know, in terms of the investment pace, but also the exits, a number of fantastic sort of deals and transactions, but also most impressively, it feels like you've built a really wonderful team between your colleagues. So Anil, can you give us a little bit of background? How have you got to where you are?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Really humbled and honored to have this be on this forum. And I'm a chemical engineer by background, and maybe I'll follow Andrea's footsteps here. I'm a neuroscientist turned venture capitalist, I guess. Yeah, I think TDK Ventures began about 3 years ago, and we've had the right sort of setup in order to make really fast-paced investing and investing in the right areas that are strategic to TDK.
Great, that's fantastic. And I suppose, you know, as you think about looking back, you know, that sort of, you know, when you were doing your neuroscience sort of courses and degree, you're like, I know, I'm going to become a VC. Maybe wasn't first thought of what you would be doing. So, you know, what advice would you give yourself to, you know, to end up where you are? If you know, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time before interviewing experts, customers, stakeholders, BUs in my younger days to make sure the startup is on the right track. Well, this step obviously is imperative to all investments. The decision to ultimately invest is based on those unique insights developed during or prior to the due diligence process. So in order to develop these unique insights, you have to build conviction and an investment thesis. And I would tell really my younger self to do this a lot more. And really this will help get into projects or deals earlier and has the chances to get those outsized returns. I guess in short, I would say trust yourself is a kind of an advice I would give to my younger self.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. I think that's definitely important. It's always easier though when you've had the success and, you know, you've had the sort of the confidence build up to be able to do that. But yeah, there's definitely good advice. So thank you, Anil. And I suppose, what are you most proud of then in the past year, and anything that you could have done better? Any key takeaways or learnings?
Yeah, I would say I'm most proud of identifying and investing in a company called Ascend Elements. It was called formerly Battery Resourcers. It's a lithium-ion battery recycling company. It's a company I sourced from a pitch event straight out of the university. And it didn't come out of top schools like MIT or Harvard, the big schools that you hear, and it was passed by many VCs if they were being kicked around. But the company really had an amazing foundational technology that fit the thesis that I had built within my TDK colleagues. which was somewhat contrarian. Again, going back to my thesis-based investing and trusting yourself. Recently, the company announced like the largest lithium-ion recycling facility in North America. We raised over $100 million for that company, and currently also in the midst of raising $250 million, and has a very high potential to be a unicorn by the end of the year. So I would say that that's something that I'm really, really proud of, because it really is shows the ability to be able to pick something from a lot of noise. What could have gone better? I guess these are a little more personal things, right? I could have probably met more friends. I could have met more entrepreneurs physically. Probably I could have exercised more. I think it's more really on just the holistic self, because we all have just one life, and we have to be able to live and yet perform at the highest level.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Wonderful words, Anil. And I'm delighted that you'll be able to come to the GCV symposium in May as well and join the cricket tour. You talk about wanting to do more exercise. Here could be your part. For those who don't want to play cricket, it will just be a sort of little tour down to the West Country, past Stonehenge, to have some drinks at the barbecue and kind of close off the GCV symposium in some style. As it happens, I'm chairman of a cricket club, so it's a nice way for me to kind of use the ground as well. But Anil, thank you so much. Wonderful accomplishments. I totally agree. I think what used to be called Battery Resources was just an amazing deal, and it's just been a rocket ship to watch over the past 18 months. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Jim.
Great. And now we're going to turn on to Tiffany. So thank you, Anil. Welcome, Tiffany. Delighted to have you join us from the West Coast. And hopefully it's not too early in the day for you at the moment.
No, it's not too bad.
That's great. And I suppose tell us a little bit more about your own background, and obviously sort of Mitsui Sumitomo is like quite a big insurance company. So can you give us a little bit of a flavour of what you guys have been up to, please?
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I come from a little bit of a non-traditional background. It's actually psychology and sociology. I've done a lot of work in the humanities space before moving into tech to build out a bunch of incubator accelerator programs. And then eventually I got picked up by Singtel Group to do scouting and innovation, and then moved into the ventures team. And then I joined MS&AD Ventures about 2.5 years ago.
Cool. Impressive background. I remember you back in the Singtel days. The Innovator was, I think it was one of the first CBC units out of Singapore back in the day, wasn't it? If memory
serves. Yeah, it was quite a ride.
That's great. And I suppose looking back, that's quite a sort of, like you say, the humanities. We don't see always a lot of people come from that background into corporate venture capital. I actually think it would be better for the world if more of them did. But I suppose, what advice would you give to that younger self on your transition career?
So I think there's 2 points. One, a few people have said this, you really need to trust yourself. Even though I officially, studied psychology and sociology, I just loved learning a lot. And one of the things I used to get in trouble a lot was I wanted to try everything. I wanted to touch everything. I always was doing, 2-3 things at a time. And it would drive some people crazy. And they're like, Tiffany, you need to focus. And the great thing about venture capital and CVC is like, wow, we can literally touch, whatever we feel like touching. So I think I found sort of my place in the world where I can explore as much as I want. So I think, the sooner I had understood this, that there's actually a role, where that skill set is appreciated, the faster I can start contributing to the world. So I think I would just tell my younger self, like, don't worry about so much, all these people telling you what to do. Just go and explore. Actually, go faster, explore even more,
It's very true. I think Leonardo da Vinci once said that, that the only thing you can never get too much of is learning, lose your fears and stuff like that. So it's a powerful thing to do, to go out and explore. That's wonderful to hear, Tiffany. So thank you very much. And I suppose more recently, what are you most proud of then in the past year or so? And any learnings or anything you could have done better?
Yeah, so what I really love about my current team is we move very fast, right? And we're only 3.5 years old, and we have over 62 investments in our portfolio already. And we also do global between 3 partners. I've brought on some folks to the team, so we're expanding a little bit. But I mean, just learning how to manage between a lot of times. It was my dream to do global, by the way. I've always had, like I never felt like I belonged when I was younger, even though I was born and raised in San Francisco. But when I started to travel, I was like, you know what, the world is actually my home. And my vision was to go and find the best things all over the world. And this job really enabled me to do this. Our 62 companies are scattered, all over the world. And it's been really amazing just to learn about the culture, figuring how the different pieces work, how do you take all these different types of companies and move them into different parts of the world, because MS&AD is actually a global company, right? So we have to look at our investments through that lens.
Yeah, it's a powerful way. Someone once said, I think it was Samuel Johnson, that London is basically the world in an oyster or something along those lines. So come to London for the symposium, as well as stay in California for the GCVI Summit, Tiffany, and we'll see a lot more of that. And I suppose as you think ahead about the world, and particularly about the corporate venturing industry, which is now properly global, we had one of our first corporates from Uzbekistan join the GCV Institute last week or so in a project with one of the big European development banks that came through there. So it feels like if they could do deals in Uzbekistan, that was their first venture program that's been set up, and first deal, then it can happen anywhere. But as you think about the sort of global CVC industry, what area of change would you most like to see, Tiffany?
So I think I've been in the CVC world for quite some time and see them come and go, right? We're still friends with a lot of people, but I think it's just really important. CVCs and corporations can be really, really powerful, and we can make a really positive impact. But we really need to make sure that firms are structured appropriately to be empowered to make the changes that an organization needs.
That's really important. That's really good. Okay, well, thank you so much for that, Tiffany. Thanks once again for being able to join this and share some of your insights and wisdom. It's really appreciated. Thank you to all, David, Sophia, Andrea, and Anil as well. Really appreciate it. I'm now going to sort of hand over to one of my colleagues and partners, and Liz Arrington. Liz obviously has been the superstar for many years for most of you in terms of understanding corporate venture. I had the great honor of sort of learning firsthand the wisdom through Corporate Venture in a Survival Guide, where she was the star author, along with her colleague at BMG, Heidi Mason. I had the honor of kind of slipping in there a little bit as a co-author. But that sort of work and insights that she brought to bear through the book has in effect been turned into a much more modular sort of fundamental course called the GCV Institute. So Liz, perhaps you can sort of share your screen and share a few insights of what's been happening on the Institute the past year, because
yeah, delighted to do so. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'd like to start today by, first of all, congratulating, all of the winners of the Rising Stars and Emerging Leaders Awards. I have to say it was really exciting for me to see so many Institute alumni on the Rising Stars list. Grace Chan, your ears are going to be burning. Grace Chan of BP, Niels Deutsch of Bros Ventures, participated in Landing the Value of Corporate Venturing. Sung-Hwan Khan of LG Ventures participated in a number of courses. And we also appreciate the contributions of a number of the emerging leaders like Anil Lachuta and Jessica Zieski of Echo Health Ventures, who contributed to case studies for the courses, and Timur Davis of Munich Re Ventures, who contributed some really thought-leading input on our work on emerging operating models for corporate venturing programs. But today I'm really happy to have an opportunity to update you a little bit on the Institute's work. As Jim just mentioned, the idea for the Institute was really born out of the collaboration among Jim and Heidi Mason and I on Corporate Venturing Survival Guide. And the Corporate Venturing Survival Guide really translated years of in-depth research that we'd all done on CVC industry best practices into a maturity framework and a set of design rules for building impactful and resilient programs. But two key messages from the community kept coming out of our research. The first was that while CVC is increasingly seen as a mainstream weapon in the corporate innovation arsenal and an influential player in the global innovation ecosystem, corporate parents really don't understand how corporate venturing works and the roles that they should play in driving value. And secondly, we heard consistently, particularly from the high performing programs, that the bar for CBC program professionalism has been raised, that this new high bar and adhering to this new high bar is really critical to the reputation of the industry, as well as the impact and the longevity of individual programs. So in response, we created the first specialized institute that was really dedicated to corporate venturing industry advancement, staying power, and ecosystem impact. And with the input and the support of a number of CBC industry leaders, we envisioned and now are addressing 3 key pillars: professional development and certification, communities of practice, and CBC benchmarking. And I'd like to start out with this foundational institute graphic as kind of a reminder of the complexity of the corporate venturing industry landscape. You know, it involves serving both internal and external stakeholders, and it's actually a much harder job than institutional investing. And what really distinguishes the institute approach to professional development is our conviction that an end-to-end investing approach that integrates a professional investment capability with a professional partnering capability is really fundamental to both portfolio financial performance and to the delivery of the ultimate strategic impact that you need to ensure corporate venturing program longevity. And over the past 4 to 5 years, we've seen high-performing programs increasingly blend a professional investment function with a professional corporate venture business development or portfolio development function to drive ecosystem engagement and portfolio success. And particularly in a frothy investment environment like today, professional corporate venturing business development or portfolio development capabilities are really seen as a powerful source of competitive advantage for top CVCs. Munich Re Ventures, Chevron Technology Ventures, JetBlue Technology Ventures, Echo Health Ventures, Intel Capital are all examples of early leaders in the establishment of powerful professional engagement platforms. So our thesis is that establishing a common corporate venturing language and an understanding of all of its unique integrated characteristics is really critical to enabling all affected parties to work together impactfully and to deliver the promised value. So the Institute curriculum is designed to address both the corporate venturing team professional development, as well as effective engagement with both parent partners and external stakeholders. So a quick review of the Institute curriculum. We currently offer 4 courses that integrate a combination of foundational corporate venturing common language and models with a rich combination of CBC program expert case studies that would come in the form of Q&A panels or videos, also self-directed learning and resources available on our learning management platform, opportunities for cohort-based live interaction, as well as mentored problem solving with support from expert mentors from other CBC programs. And yet this cohort-based concept is particularly important because one thing we heard from one of the graduates of the courses was how valuable the opportunity to network with the peers and to compare and contrast challenges and opportunities. And he commented that it was such a joy to be in a class where it was like everyone is the smartest person in the room. So the 4 courses that we're currently offering are, first of all, Cbc Investment Programs, which is a cohort-based corporate venture capital masterclass, which really explores the key elements for designing, building, and optimizing strategic investment programs that meet that high bar for professionalism. And this course is designed both for new corporate leaders who are planning to start a CBC, as well as those from existing programs who want to get perspective on what others are doing or to onboard and develop promising new team members. The second course, our advanced course, is cohort-based again, and it's really the Landing the Value of Corporate Venturing is really focused on building and optimizing professional startup partnering and portfolio development strategies and programs. And this course includes a mentored end-to-end investing project. The third category of courses are really designed for parent business unit and functional managers or people who need to have a better understanding of CVCs and the investment process, but don't invest themselves. And it's a cohort-based introduction to corporate venturing and innovation partnering, and it's really designed to enhance parent understanding of what corporate venturing programs do and how they can most impactfully engage. Over the past year, we've really spent a lot of time fine-tuning the Institute's flagship course, which we call Landing the Value of Corporate Venturing. And what this course does is it takes cross-functional pods. It may be an investor, a business development person, a shared service person, a parent representative, and it takes them on a learning journey that's designed to enable both the corporate venturing teams and the parent and ecosystem partners to establish a common language and a shared understanding of how to work together more impactfully. And this program really comes in two different phases, both of which are consistently enhanced by rich opportunities to engage with representatives of leading CVC programs across a range of industries, maturity phases, and operating models. And it's divided into two parts. The first part is a 3-session immersion phase, which really looks at establishing CVC industry language and context with a particular focus on building powerful portfolio development or business development programs. And then the second piece is a practicum, and it's a 6-week mentored challenge project that allows pods to pick an issue that they think is going to move the needle for their particular program and be assigned a mentor from a complementary CVC program, sometimes the same industry, sometimes shared horizontal areas, but who really have the opportunity to contribute their learnings and to potentially establish relationships. I mean, as you can see, this list of logos from mentors for the last program, we had representatives of Allstate Strategic Ventures, of Munich Re, of Intel Capital, of Merck, of JetBlue, of InQtel. I mean, in all cases, pods really came away saying that this was one of the most valuable opportunities that they've ever had. This course is all about impact, with the goal being proven outcomes that benefit both participant, program, and parent, coming away with stronger cross-functional relationships among the team, more effective parent partnerships. And I think one of the benefits that a number of companies have seen coming out of this is deeper complementary CVC program partnerships developed through the mentor relationships. And we do have a cohort kicking off in March, so we still have space if anyone is interested. The second area that we're doing some interesting things is our standard investment programs course. We've run now 8 times, and it's been very well received by participants from a combination of programs across maturity phases, industries, geos. But as a result, we're seeing really strong interest from a range of organizations interested in partnering with the Institute to leverage our unique content, our proven instructional model, our learning platform, and our program management to create new bespoke courses that are designed to really build and scale professional corporate venturing capacity in particular regions or sectors or within individual companies. And we're currently doing this in 3 ways. One is taking a semi-custom approach where there's no significant change to the core content or structure, but we pick experts who are representative or understanding of the region or the sector. And Jim just mentioned the program that we just piloted with a leading European development bank, where we addressed fintech CVCs in Central and Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Other potential opportunities that we've been approached by are to do custom courses looking at an emerging sector. Like, for example, there was discussion of doing an Industry 5.0 version, where the majority of the custom course would rely on the existing content and structure, but we co-teach it with experts in the topic, and it would incorporate deep dive modules on the emerging sector. So we see lots of opportunity to contribute to broader industry development and scaling. And we would welcome opportunities to work with any of you on how to expand and continue to scale and professionalize the industry globally. And what we'd like to now turn to spending a little time to talk about is another key initiative for 2022. This year, we really are celebrating our first birthday with the launch of the first corporate venturing operational and performance benchmarking platform. And the idea is that we'd like to be able to serve as a reference point for CBC strategic and operational planning, but also to continue to provide timely best practices data for the Institute's professional development curriculum. So we'll always really have our finger on the pulse of industry trends. And we're particularly excited that Jana Ruther, a PhD candidate in corporate venturing, has joined the team full time to serve as our global benchmarking program lead. And she and I, over the past few months, have had in-depth conversations with a number of leading CBCs to validate assumptions about what data is really needed the most and why. And we've worked with Kalyan Andanov of GCV to refine and tune the annual survey questions so that we can start to establish, an aggregate industry data foundation and to draw insights across 5 key categories. And we have defined and begun to test potential year 1 service offerings and to start work on a benchmarking platform roadmap. So we are welcome your continued input on how we can make this service offering most valuable over time. Why do we think that CBC benchmarking is so important? Again, although corporate venturing has become a mainstream innovation vehicle for increasing numbers of corporations, it's also a really unique specialist activity that's not well understood by most corporate executives, which is why everyone has all these difficult conversations about operating models. When key decisions need to be made about CBC program creation, about expansion or redirection, executive decision makers and program leaders really look to the outside for competitor and cross-sector reference points. And we see that the same questions come up again and again, and that there historically has been no single source available for the key industry operational and performance data. For example, for corporations looking to design new programs, we hear it's all about how do you define the right corporate venturing program architecture, and what is the early execution that is really needed to establish credibility, both inside the corporation and outside. And for existing programs, it's all about how do they evolve their operating models as they expand and as they face the growing pains that often come with particularly successful programs. So what we're looking to do is to design a CBC benchmarking platform that will do 3 key things. First of all, it will enable the capture of high quality benchmarking data. Some of it will be self-entry, some of it will be institute team enhancement and quality assurance. And secondly, to have a mechanism to allow that industry data to be filtered to reflect the context of individual programs. So it might look at region, it might look at industry, it might look at maturity phase. There's no one answer, it all depends. And then the third piece is the platform should allow us to be able to deliver insights and data visualization, either as an institute service or ultimately as an annual platform subscription. So in year 1, we're assuming that all of our benchmarking offerings are going to be delivered as a service, because this will give us an opportunity to demonstrate value, to prioritize data needs, and then essentially to wireframe the logic that we're going to need to be able to ultimately deliver self-service data. So in year 1, the idea is that we'll offer 2 categories of service around the data. The first one would be bespoke data slice reports, which would be taking the existing aggregate data and using filters to slice the report relative to an individual program or competitive peer characteristics. And then the second category of service, or what we call light touch advisory services, And we would see these coming in two flavors. One would be adding insights on implications around bespoke data slices, and then being able to highlight some best practice peer examples. As we are in the process of developing a library of Institute CBC program profiles, starting with what we've done with the book, but continuing to build them on an ongoing basis. And then the other type of light touch advisory service would be custom projects, which would allow us to start to develop foundational data sets around new areas. For example, we've had people come and talk to us about wanting more insights on portfolio financial accounting practices, or it might be looking at incubator structures and compensation models. So the year two benchmarking offerings, we're looking at, ultimately we'd like to be able to offer a self-service platform, but in year one, it's going to be all service driven. The foundational aggregate industry data that we've referenced is starting with the annual World of Corporate Venturing Industry Survey. All of that initial work at an aggregate industry basis, a summary analysis is available in the World of Corporate Venturing report that Jim mentioned. And if you hadn't had an opportunity, he did a brilliant job in yesterday's webinar, highlighting some of the key findings that came out of that research. We will, and the goal is that we're going to continue to refine this annual survey so that it really allows us to keep a finger on the pulse of industry trends. And building on Jim's earlier comments, a few additional highlights from the 2022 survey, which incorporated input from more than 200 respondents, representative mix of industries, maturity phases, geographies. So we feel like we had a really good data set to start with, and I think we're able to draw some pretty interesting insights. At a high level, kind of 5 key points. We see CBC having a mainstream role for strategic innovation beyond the core. It's typically a very high visibility activity. We found in the survey more than 2/3 of CBCs report through C-level executives. 25% actually report directly to the CEO. And while parent commercial engagement is not required as a condition of CBC investment for most, we find that parent portfolio attach rate is a key activity-based strategic metric for 2/3 of participants. And if we look team and operating model, we're seeing standard CBC operating models are increasingly purpose-built for corporate venturing and strategic investing. What's really different now is that there's increasing recognition that CBC is really a professional sport, and it's played by dedicated specialist teams. So it justifies looking at corporate venturing teams and models in a differentiated way. And although 2/3 of corporations, for the most part, invest off the balance sheet, many with kind of an evergreen focus, we're seeing a growing number of CBCs investing through separate legal entities with fully committed capital in funds and providing greater operating autonomy and team financial accountability. And it was interesting.
Liz, 1 minute left, please.
Okay. And why don't I quickly jump to an example of, or a couple of examples of what we're looking at doing and what we've already started to feel inquiries around. On the data fund slides, we were, for example, recently asked for data fund slides to support a proposal for a new fund, and the program wanted to know what are appropriate peer benchmarks relative to the key factors that really influence fund size. And on the light touch advisory front size, we were, for example, we were asked for market context on spinning out a successful existing program. So they were interested not only in data on operating models and compensation, but also examples of representative peer profiles and insights on potential watchouts. So we're just getting started and we're really feeling our way along, but we're excited about the potential to create something valuable going forward. So we're now open for business, and we look forward to working with all of you to create a source of professional development, data, and insights that we can all use to drive CBC industry professionalism, scale, and impact. And for more information, feel free to contact me or Yana or Lee Sessions for professional development. So thanks so much, all of you, for your time, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that, Liz. That was really inspiring. And it's amazing work that you, Yana, and Lee, among others, are doing, such as Jimmy Gunnell and others. It's just really impressive. So we're just about to start the sort of network breakouts at the half-hour mark. So everyone should be able to look in their calendar for those who have been invited and be able to click on the link in a moment. Obviously, do check out globalventuring.com for more on the news and insights. And then also the events calendar. I referenced the symposium and summit coming up. Obviously, this is just a sort of snapshot on the Brazil and Tokyo events we got planned in the second half of the year, and a number of regional dinners and drinks that we're planning across the continent and in the US and London as well. Obviously, thank you to all the rising stars and emerging leaders. And I think now we should be able to open up to the networking and breakout rooms. Thank you to everyone. And thank you in particular to Edison and Poonam, as I mentioned, for being able to do so much. Speak soon, everyone. Bye.